right, hello everyone. It is great to see everyone here. Thank you so much for coming and attending our session on empowerment, independence, and self-determination. So first, I want to give each of our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves because they are all phenomenal. And the first square that I have on my screen is Wilbert. Wilbert, do you want to give a brief introduction for us?
Yes. Hi, my name is Wilbert Johnson. I'm 23 years old. I have an intellectual disability. I am a self-advocate, and I'm currently working for Audubon Institute.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wilbert. We're so happy to have you on this panel. The next person that I have on my screen is Allie. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Quick question. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
Okay, because my camera's saying it's not on. I want to make sure everyone can see me. But hi, I'm Allie Hooks. I'm a recent kidney transplant recipient, and I currently study at Texas Tech University. I am from Louisiana, small town of Port Barry, but I'm currently getting a degree in law, hopefully. But yes, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Stuart, do you want to go?
Hi, I'm Stuart. I'm working at LSU Human Development Center. I've been working here for 5 years. It's my dream job, and I'm happy to say that Lillian replaced me on the LADD Council, and her mother, Nicole, was one of the previous year's Lynn trainees. So she knows me really well. Will another was a participant in the first year of our paycheck program in its first year. That's another program of HDC. We're very much along a whole spectrum of things happen at HDC, and it's a shame that it doesn't get touted more in the community.
Well, thank you for that information and wonderful introduction, Stuart. Kim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. My name is Kim Savoy. I am 39 years old, and I have aniridia, which just means I have no irises, and I'm considered legally blind.
Thank you. Mr. Harlon, you're up next.
All right. My name is Harlon Cowsar, and I'm 50 years old. I work as the adult program coordinator and information and referral specialist with Families Helping Families of Acadiana. And I work with the Mayor President's office in Lafayette, Mayor Josh Gilliard, as Disability Awareness Coordinator. And I'm very excited to be here. Thank y'all.
We're excited to have you here too. And last but not least, Isaac, would you like to go?
Thank you, Lillian, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isaac Gilliard. I'm 38 years old, and I'm the Community Health and Outreach Supervisor with the Louisiana Department of Health Office of Public Health STD HIV Hepatitis C program, that's SHIP, based out of New Orleans. And I've been living with HIV since 2005.
Thank you, Isaac. I know we haven't met before, but I'm very excited to have you here as well. One thing that I would like to mention is we do have some preset questions, but if anyone in the audience has any questions, whether that's via YouTube chat or Zoom chat, please send them in and we may answer them live as well. Our GODA staff will be keeping an eye out for that. So without further ado, let's go into our first question. So that first question is, do you consider yourself as having a disability? And if you do you have a preference for person first or identity first language? Mr. Harlon, would you like to go first?
Sure. I don't think there's any doubt that I have a disability. I'm totally blind and profoundly deaf in 1 year. And I have been since a car accident in 1989. But that being said, I also just consider that a characteristic of who I am. And I appreciate person first language much more so than identity first language. I've worked a lot with people first and people first language, and I find it to be, even though some people say it's semantics, after using it and learning to use it effectively, I find that it really helped to build my confidence and improve the way I think about my own disability.
Well, thank you for that answer. I would like to pose the same question to Ali. Do you consider yourself as having a disability or no?
Personally, yes, I do. I know it varies between different people, but as a college student, I've learned that I can't do everything else kids my age do. So yes, I do consider it. I consider it what makes me stand out. It makes me special. It makes me look unique as I walk into a classroom and I get to introduce myself and let them know the journey and the great things that have happened to me. But as for the second part of the question, personally, it goes back and forth. I don't really have a preference, so to say. I respond either way. It doesn't offend me. But yes, that's the sum it up for me. I don't really matter to me. I go both ways.
Thank you for that answer. And I think it's such an important discussion because in our disability community, I know I've noticed there are some people who have started to say, I actually prefer identity first language. There's some people who really strongly prefer person first. Before we move on, there is a question in the Zoom chat that I would like to pause and address real quick. Someone asked, what is person first language? And I think that's an amazing question. Does any of our panelists want to respond to that before we move forward? Isaac? I can't
Pretty
hear
much,
you.
can you hear me?
Yeah, now,
Can you hear me?
yes. Yes.
Sorry about that. It's all good. So I'll say that I consider person first language and pretty much in the public health field, in the HIV prevention field. Person first language is considered the source of empowerment as opposed to the disability first, regarding the stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS, and in the past, and then the progress that has been made in the future. Person first is ideally used or preferred language, and change the perception of it in the HIV field and HIV prevention field, because the stigma with HIV and AIDS is that that there's so many negative stigmas towards it, attached to it, and so it's living with HIV since 2005 and learning about the person first language, because if I wasn't active in the field, I may not have known that person first language was more important in the field, as it intersects with LGBT issues and other issues as well. So person first is ideal. So a person who injects drugs, a person living with HIV is preferred, and it's ideal that we do that because we're considering the person first before anything is quote unquote viewed as or perceived as a disability. Considering the person first as a human being there before anything. So a person with or a person that has, and using non-stigmatizing language.
Thank you for such a thorough description. We definitely appreciate it. And I think it provides a lot of clarity and illuminates a lot for us. And so generally, whenever we use person first, we'll say person with a disability or person with HIV versus identity first, which would be like disabled person, or I don't know what another alternative would be, but a disabled person would be your alternative. So Wilbert, would you want to answer that question? Do you consider yourself as having a disability?
I don't, because every day my goal is to become more than my disability. My goal is to look past my disability. My goal every day is to just live life on life terms, but be more than my disability. So I don't want to always give myself that title, because if I give myself that title, I feel like I'm not going to be able to capable of pushing forward. So I don't know. I don't consider myself with a disability.
Can I ask you another question?
Mm-hmm.
So do you prefer not to refer yourself as disabled mostly for you or for other people's perception so they don't limit their expectations?
For both. For both, because you should always limit yourself. You should go far as you can. You should put yourself. You shouldn't have your title. You shouldn't have no one to give you a title. So I have always learned to push forward, push, no matter what. Keep pushing and keep striving.
I love that. Thank you for that perspective, Wilbert. I think it's really important to have so many different perspectives at the table where we say, okay, maybe I
Mhm.
don't identify as disabled, and that's okay too. So our next question is, what makes you feel most empowered? And I have a specific question for Stuart about this one, because I know we had sat on another panel together a couple months ago, and he talked a lot about how your religious community really helped in your self-determination journey. And would you mind talking a little bit about that for us?
Yes. For it's for I'm Jewish. My religious community um is very closely knit with between synagogue and summer camp, and a lot of the and and a lot of the people who are away at summer camp now will feel the same thing. Between the last time Lillian and I spoke and this time, I actually watched the movie Crit Camp again um and was invited to speak on a discussion panel for it. Um, um, this isn't true for a lot of groups of people, but it certainly is true for the Reformed Jewish community. You you can put 10 Reformed Jews under 30 in a room, and 9 of them will have gone to summer camp. So it's just that level of connectedness, that level of community, and I feel empowered in that community. They treat me just like any other. They don't see me as anything other than who I actually am. So it's a well-fit community.
Thank you for that answer, Stuart. And I think it almost speaks to what Isaac was saying about person first language earlier, about seeing the person first, not just the disability or the health condition or whatever else someone may have going on. And so I wanted to pose the same question to Isaac, because I know you talked a lot about empowerment, and how people first language can be very empowering. So first off, would you consider yourself having a disability? And also, what does make you feel the most empowered?
And no, thank you for asking, Lillian, because um, just thinking about the perception of even having a disability for some people is very negatively stigmatizing, and and then bringing into my awareness that um, knowing that other people with disabilities are protected by law. So that's a form of empowerment for individuals with health conditions, and knowing that we're protected, federally protected by law. And then it's a point of empowerment to know that. And a lot of people don't know that. But no, I don't consider myself as having a disability, but in the needs of protection and empowerment, yes, I will. And also to what it brought to me coming into the public health field, the cognizance of everything, even so far as the different social justice issues and LGBT issues and disability and non-disability issues have posed that question to me. And no, I don't, but I can understand that how it is linked to being a disability, because at one point, HIV or as a result of AIDS is something that was detrimental. It was a death factor, and it impacts the health tremendously, meaning that the immune system can be impacted by anything. Even individuals with cancer are diagnosed with an AIDS diagnosis, just to say clinically, because their immune system is so low at a CD4 specific count. So understanding that the science behind how it's linked to being a disability. However, noticing the difference. So no, I don't identify as having a disability, and providing support to other individuals because of the stigma is just as important, because not to perpetuate it, but to help change the narrative or help to change the perception on living with HIV as well is as important. And I'm pretty sure everyone can agree with me, because that's why we're activists and that's why we're advocates with what we do.
Thank you, Isaac, for that answer. And I think it's so interesting because there's some parallels with my experience as a person with a disability, but also who is chronically ill, because I exist within these two spheres of the disability community and the chronic illness community. And there are vastly different perspectives on language and how people identify between these two communities. So like in the disability community, some people are a little bit more gung-ho on the I'm disabled, that's who I am as a person. But then in the chronic illness community, it's like, no. I'm not disabled. I just got sick. I'm a healthy person who got sick, and that's the end of the story. And I think respecting that language and respecting those boundaries are so important. And that's why these conversations are so important. So we can discuss those nuances between all these different communities. So thank you. I wanted to pose a similar question to Kim about empowerment. What makes you feel most respected and most disrespected in terms of empowerment whenever it comes to your disability?
Well, I think it really just depends on the person. Like for as being, I guess, part of the blind community, I guess. I guess it's like just the different things of how we do things, as far as like transportation, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm hearing that having proper supports makes you feel empowered and respected, such as transportation.
Yes.
I think that's such a great answer, and I appreciate you sharing that, just because, I mean, there's no easier way to feel disrespected as a person with a disability than if you don't have your basic needs met, right? If you don't have those very essential things given to you, I mean, how are you ever going to feel empowered?
Right. I mean, as long as I have things to help me, like the devices to help me see, like the magnifier, Zoom, like on a computer, things to blow material up for me. I can do things. I might have to go around about to get it done, but I'll get it done.
Thank you, Kim. Wilbert, what about you? What makes you feel the most empowered?
What makes me feel more empowered is just speaking up for myself, like letting people know that I can do more than my disability. I don't, I might need help, but I don't need help someone holding my hand all the time. So I can speak up and saying, hey, I know how to do this. I might need your help one day. I just might call you, but speaking up for myself, that makes me feel more empowered. Because if you never don't speak up, you feel less than a person and less as a man with a disability. So again, for me, it's speaking up have more makes me more empowered.
Thank you for that answer, Wilbert. And I think it really speaks to what Kim was saying, but also the fact that sometimes empowerment comes from within yourself as well.
Yeah.
Allie, what about you?
I kind of agree with Wilbert on this one. It's whenever I kind of, do something for myself, even when I have to ask for help, because I'm very stubborn and refuse to do that a lot of times. But it's just crossing over that little hill because even though I want to do it, I have to ask for help sometimes, or I have to tell people to slow down that I can't keep up. And just for them to react and with such a positive attitude and help me to accomplish something, it makes me feel like $1,000,000. I feel so excited. Being a college student, I try to hang out with people my age. I'm 21, and so at that young age, we're running and roller skating and swimming, and a lot of those things I can't physically do because I can't move that well. So I have to just kind of tell them, like, can we do something different? Can we just go eat at a restaurant? And they're so accepting of that. They understand that I can't do completely everything everyone else can. And so just to ask for help or go over that little speed bump, but Wilbur kind of summed up all of my things I was going to say. He made a great point.
Thank you.
And I think sometimes.
I think our YouTube channel is glitching out.
Oh, I think Miss Bambi, if you could check that out, that would be great. I think sometimes, we can be surprised with positive reactions just because whenever you have a disability or a health condition, you get so many negative reactions. And so I remember a very, very clear memory from whenever I was much younger. I use a wheelchair for long distances, and this was the first time my peers would see me in a wheelchair, right? And I was a little nervous, but turns out they were the ones most excited to push my wheelchair, and they were over the moon excited about this. So it was pretty funny. But I think a lot of what you guys are saying kind of speaks to a relationship between independence, interdependence, and dependence in our lives. And so I kind of want to open up a conversation about those topics. So, Mr. Harlon, could you kind of give us a brief kind of explanation about the difference between these three things?
Well, I mean, obviously, total dependence would be depending on someone else for all of your needs. Independence would be expressing your own self-sufficiency, and interdependence would be working with someone to satisfy your needs. And honestly, those are all very personal choices, and depending on the scale of someone's disability, they may have to make any one of those choices at any particular time. Personally, I strive as much as possible to be independent and interdependent. Kim and I work together all the time to achieve goals and improve our circumstances. And I really try very hard to help other people do the same things. And I would like to say also, if I can, we talk about these words like independence and empowerment and self-determination, but they're not just words that we draw out of a hat. They're things that we have to work on, and they're goals to achieve. And we achieve those goals with the tools, the programs, the attitudes, and the opportunities that open those possibilities. And I think that's something that we all need to think about, because a lot of times words like independence and empowerment, they kind of get thrown around a lot. And they're very serious things that require a lot of work.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you bringing this up. I know we had a conversation the other day when you mentioned like defining words like empowerment is like trying to grab onto smoke, and that really stuck with me because you're absolutely right. Isaac, I saw you nodding a lot to what Harlan said. Did you want to expand upon that any?
I mean, well, yeah, I agree, because to a certain point, whether we're disabled or have a health condition that causes us to be disabled, however it may be, at some point we have to be dependent on something. We have to be interdependent as well. There are us at times as well, and it's something that we do have to work on. I definitely agree, because at one point I probably couldn't do what I'm doing now, and standing here and advocate and be expressive to this point. Maybe 20 something or 15 something years ago, I probably wouldn't be able to do this. But because I've been in the setting and put myself in a position to be there, I've got those experiences that I needed to be empowered and to sometimes be independent. And then because I needed resources, the the foundations or the nonprofit agencies and the clinics here in Baton Rouge, pretty much were helping me. So there was some interdependence there as well. So, and using it to my advantage. So I think that to be able to achieve empowerment, or even to be empowered, we have to utilize those things. So that's why I was nodding and agreeing with Mr. Harlan, because yeah, I think that, and there's other people at those different phases as well. So that's the reason why, I'm doing the work that I do to help prevent HIV transmission, so that people, can know and educate that it's not an illness that it used to be. It's not a death sentence, specifically speaking for me, and also to educating about the other things, how they intersect with my capability as well. So just utilizing it to our advantage, and utilizing to the advantage to educate and bring aware, so that people can know that that things are in place, or, understood that, hey, non-stigmatizing language is something to utilize, so that, because it changes the perception of how you look at individuals, So that's why I was agreeing with him. I think we need them at all different points, and people are at different phases, even now. So that is our responsibility to, even influence those impacted right now, as we're experienced. So that's just my take on it.
Thank you, Isaac. And I'm very glad that people with HIV have people like you to network with, to have that guidance and that community. Because I know whenever you have a health condition or disability, that kind of resource is invaluable, that firsthand perspective and that firsthand experience. I want to ask Wilbert and Stuart about what dependence, independence, and interdependence looks like in your work life, because I know each of you are very active in your jobs. So either of you, whoever wants to go first.
I think I'm gonna go first. Independence for me in the work life is like leading a team before calling the manager. So I'm leading the team. I'm solving a problem, against problem, before calling my manager or calling my supervisor. So I'm stepping into that role. Independent. What was the other word you said?
Interdependence.
So thank you, Stuart.
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Interdependence. INT.
The other word is like if I need someone to help me, or I will have, if I need a manager or supervisor, I will have to call my supervisor or manager.
That makes sense. Thank you, Wilbert. Stuart, do you have any input on that?
Yes, I exhibit a lot of independence because I generally have a skill set that nobody else in my community has. And so I get tasked with workloads on that skill set. And so I generally know what the application software I use can and can't do. Whereas when I'm interdependent, sometimes it's difficult to know what others are asking for. And so I ask for clarification, and I'm interdependent, and when I'm ready to just go, that's when I become independent.
Thank you, Stuart. And Kim, I know that you work as well. Do you have any input on that?
I'm pretty much independent. I mean, as far as work-wise, I mean, I have to rely on the little vision I do have as far as like cleaning and all that, and loading vending machines, you know, it's pretty much independence, and just because I can't see and all that, that's the reason we live in a big city, you know, because I like to be independent. I don't like depending on really any, you know, you just simple as for having to go to the grocery store, getting, you know, if when I need to go somewhere, I do a Uber or a Lyft, you know, so it's like that, you know.
Thank you. And I think Isaac just put something in the chat. I forgot to add that people living with HIV are dependent on medications daily to maintain viral suppression. And so it almost speaks to what Isaac was saying, where, you know, you're dependent on like Uber and Lyft to get to the grocery store, whereas people with HIV may be dependent on certain medications. And Allie, I wanted to get your take on this because as a transplant recipient, do you have to take immunosuppressive medications?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I take pills every day just to suppress my immune system so the kidney functions correctly. With that comes a lot of side effects. At one point, I was taking 56 pills a day just to get my body to not reject my new transplanted kidney. I'm now down to 20 pills a day, but still for a 21-year-old in college taking 20 pills, each of them have a side effect, whether it's me not being able to focus in class or I'm constantly tired. So there is ups and downs to everything, but I understand when Isaac was saying we're dependent on meds, and that is absolutely true. I know me and him are different when it comes to our disabilities and everything, but meds is something that a lot of us rely on, whether it's just even a Tylenol pill to get the pain away sometimes. It can be a workload, especially, but after a while, I've become used to it. I'm used to waking up and taking my meds and going to bed and taking my meds. It becomes a routine eventually. So it doesn't stand out to me until Isaac said that. I was like, oh, wow, yes, he is absolutely right. I didn't realize that because it becomes a routine in your head and you just keep going with it. But yes, as a kidney transplant, I take many meds to be able to suppress my immune system. I have to watch what I eat. There's certain medicines or foods I can't have because they interact with my transplant medication. But yes, I do take meds along with Isaac and probably a few others.
I know that I'm very dependent on meds as well. At one point, I was on 32 pills a day. You probably have like the world record, though. I'm not gonna lie. But I'm also dependent on a lot of machines day to day. And so I know that a lot of people outside of my inner circle view this as a very negative thing, right? The perspective is like, oh, you're chained to machines all day, or you're dependent on these medications. But I don't know. I just think sometimes it's a good thing that we have the medications so we can function day to day and live a self-determined life. And I think that speaks to one of our next questions is, do you think it's more difficult to live a self-determined life as a person with a disability or a health condition compared to non-disabled people or people without a health condition? So whoever wants to go first, just go for it.
I don't mind going again, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I can actually kind of relate more to this question. I know a lot of mine are based on college because that's basically my full-time job as a college student, especially as a law major. It can definitely be a workload. But one thing I've noticed is it takes a lot of determination to be able to get your college degree, especially if you looked at me 2 years ago when I was on a dialysis machine 5 days a week for 5 hours a day. I was chained to that machine. And even though I lost so much time and so much, going out with my friends because I was so reliant on this machine, I still was studying on the machine. I was doing my math homework on the dialysis machine. When I got home, I worked my butt off to be able to get my homework done in my exams and things like that. So it is a little more difficult living with a disability to be able to walk around campus and find your classes, go up the stairs. But thankfully here at Texas Tech, even though it's the biggest college in the nation, they do cater to us. So we do have elevators and we have interpreters, ASL interpreters, because I'm currently studying ASL. So I'm amazed that Miss Gail is here. I love that. But for me personally, I think it's a little harder, but it doesn't stop me from achieving my goal. That goal is to get my law degree. And no matter what's in my way or what's stopping me, I'm determined to get that. If it takes me 10 years, so be it. I will get my degree because I went through all this of a journey and the troubles of everything. To just drop out now would be crazy. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm going to get that degree. But that's me as a college student. I know other people have different perspectives on it, but thank you, Lillian.
I love that. Thank you, Allie. Wilbert, what about you? What's your take on this?
So I agree with Ali. I'm also a college student. I'm working on getting my high school diploma and also my certification in business and management. So I totally agree with Ali. Nothing's going to stop me from getting my things. Nothing's going to stop me from getting in my way, because I know I have a learning disability, but I'm not going to let my disability hold me back from getting where I want to go in life. I have always told myself that the life that I want, I have to work harder. My dad always told me, he said, either you go for it, you just don't give up, keep going. You might gonna have some bumpy roads, but you keep going. So yeah, so I feel great, and I agree with Ali. So I understand where you're coming from.
I also really love that, Wilbert. I know growing up, my family always told me you're going to have to work twice as hard to get to where you want to go as other people, but you'll be able to get there if you put in the effort.
Yes. It's gonna take day and night, but you either you want it or you don't want it. So you have the choice. It's your choice. So I'm gonna continue to keep pushing.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally relate to that. I mean, I know there's been times that I've done schoolwork in a hospital bed or schoolwork at 11 o'clock at night because that's the only time I had energy to. So it's like just making it work according to what your body allows. Sometimes that's the way to do it.
Yes.
Isaac, what about you?
Yeah, so when I was diagnosed with HIV, I was in college. So I mean, there's an intersection that we all meet at, and it was definitely a choice for me because where I was at. Not everybody has that choice. Like I was already in school, so I made it about that. I made it about trying to find answers and being driven to finish school. And then as I did it, I found out answers. So that's what kind of got me started to get me going. Especially particularly with HIV. And yeah, I wanted to find more answers, and so I went on to get a master's degree even because I wanted to know more, and I was just driven to find out more. And even with the other social justice issues that I have to encounter as a Black gay man openly living with HIV, just that as a person. Just being aware of all of that now and thriving through it all, just remaining consistent for those to provide hope to those that meet at the same intersections as I do and others, and to maintain through. So I think it's definitely a choice because there's others that are perceived or because of stigma that will choose not to live. I've seen people do it. The barriers get hard. It's hard to be a Black gay person openly and comfortably to go into treatment, to receive treatment openly and comfortably because of the stigma on a Black gay male, just in general. And coming into awareness about that, we encounter a lot of barriers, even transportation, getting to care comfortably, even without having to worry about somebody watching us or seeing us go into there. That stigma is, I think the stigma is the disease. I don't think that anything's a disease other than stigma, because that's what perpetuates to make people think that they can't and or don't want to, or don't even think there's a possibility or aware that there's an option because, of perception, stigma.
Thank you, Isaac. That illuminates a lot for us. And we actually have a YouTube comment that says, my dad is dependent on meds as well. He's a social worker, or he has a social worker who helps keep him on track, and to have an independent lifestyle as much as possible. And there's another comment as well that says, my thoughts are that interdependence is nothing to be ashamed of. Whether we're disabled or not, we all depend on others in some way to get us through life. Independence is the goal, but it's not always the reality, which I think is very, very powerful, because even people without health conditions or disabilities will rely on plumbers to help fix their house, or electricians, right? Or even pharmacists for day-to-day meds that may not be so specialized, like immunosuppressants or viral suppression, like Isaac was talking about. So I wanted to get Kim's take on whether it's more difficult to live a self-determined life as a person with a disability compared to a non-disabled person.
Well, I've always been visually impaired, so I'm not sure. Well, let's see. I don't know if I really understand the question. Repeat the question, please.
Yeah, so the question is, do you think it's more difficult to live a self-determined life as a person with a disability as compared to a non-disabled person?
I think you have to work depending on what the disability is, and I think you have to work a little harder than maybe someone versus who doesn't have a disability or a learning, for instance, maybe like a learning disability. It might take you a little longer to do something than it would somebody else.
Absolutely. Thank you. Stuart, what about you?
What was the question?
So the question would be, do you think it's more difficult to live a self-determined life as a person with a disability as compared to a person who may not have a disability?
Only in the sense that I'm still living with my parents.
That's fair. Okay, so Mr. Harlan, what do you think about the question?
Well, I think that self-determination really boils down to making your own choices. And as we talked about earlier, I think the tools that empower us to do that, the opportunities, the programs, the devices, the medications, whatever it takes that allow us to be able to make those choices for ourselves are what we really need to focus on. And we do that through self-advocacy. And that's something that we seem to be lacking a lot right now with people who have disabilities. You know, this week we're celebrating the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was an amazing piece of legislation. But we have to remember that all it did was open the door. We still have, as you were pointed out earlier in your own session today, we have 200 years of history and programs and attitudes that we have to work through in order to make these changes for society to be able to provide people with disabilities the tools and opportunities necessary to be successful and be self-determined and to achieve the things that we want to achieve as a people.
I thank you for that answer. I think you're absolutely right. It's just that social stigma that almost is more disabling than most disabilities. Other people's lack of expectations or other people's expectations that you can't can sometimes really be more of a problem than a health condition or a disability sometimes. Does anyone want to expand on that idea?
Well said, Harlan.
Yes. So we do have a question in the chat, which is really interesting. What is the most important contribution your father and mother made to your successes? Does anyone want to go first?
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, did someone else want to go?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Mine kind of pertains to mother, father, and my grandfather. My grandfather is what really pushed me to go to college and get out of my small little town I was in. Without him, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. I also don't know where I would be without attending my dream school. But as my mother and father, one thing that they really helped me with is when I was on dialysis at the time. And at 18 years old on dialysis, it took a lot out of me. I was not able to drive. I couldn't even pick up a gallon of milk to make myself a glass of something. I was totally dependent on them to help me with absolutely everything. And over time, thankfully, I've grown and learned to do things myself. But in the very beginning was my hardest because at 18 years old, I was stubborn and I wanted to conquer the world. And then when my disease hit me, it kind of all went out the window. It hit me by surprise. It was unknown. It happened within 24 hours that everything came crashing down. And thankfully, I had that support system to help me and to drive me where I needed to go, because without them, I don't think I would have made my treatments. I wouldn't have been able to take my meds because I was stubborn. I don't know, honestly. So my parents and my grandfather really helped me to overcome and to let me know that even though I am disabled and I have this disease, that that shouldn't keep me from conquering my dream. I should dream even bigger and keep going after that dream no matter what. But that's a little bit of what my parents did.
Thank you, Allie. And whenever we're answering this question too, maybe we can also expand it to family or even chosen family as well, in case this question may not be applicable to everyone. So, Harlan, I know you had an answer earlier. Would you like to go?
Oh, yes, thanks. Well, for me, I lost my eyesight when I was 18. And my parents and my family were there to give me a lot of support, but they also never let me slide. They, if I could do something for myself, they insisted that I do it for myself. And I remember one conversation when I was arguing with my dad, and I had said something about it not being fair. And a little while later, my dad came in and gave me a copy of the Bible and told me that if I could find anywhere in that book that it said life was fair, he would change his mind. And I can tell you, it doesn't say anywhere in there that life is fair. And it's so I think that was one of the big things that helped me understand that a lot of this is going to be on me. And I'm going to have to figure out ways to do things for myself and improve myself and improve circumstances for people with disabilities. And that's what I really try to do every day.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking that we missed an opportunity by not inviting Harlan's dad to this panel. Okay. Wilbert, what about you? Do you want to give your take on this?
So I have a lot of support. First, I wanted, my dad has pushed me out of my comfort zone, because at one point in time, I felt like, if it weren't for him, I don't think I would be sitting here, because some of the things I have learned, he have taught me how to cut the bus on my own. He have taught me how to go to the bank on my own. He have taught me how to go grocery shopping on my own, to be an independent man and not to be worried about somebody else to help me along the way. Also, my mom, my family. So I had a lot of support, like I was saying. But the main person that helped me along the way was my dad, because as a man, you're supposed to know how to do things for yourself and others. So with a disability, it was kind of hard, but he understood me and he balanced with that. So yeah, I have a lot of support, and which I'm grateful for that.
It sounds like you have a really wonderful community that really believes in you.
Oh yes, because I don't think it's been hard. I have my challenge. I have my days, and which I continue keep pushing through. I keep striving. I keep pushing. So I'm the one. When I first told my dad I wanted to go back to school, because I felt like I was missing something. I wanted my high school diploma. So he was like, well, go ahead and go for it. If you need my support, I'm right on the side with you. So I felt that I know that he's going to be right there by my side along the way. So yeah, I'm excited.
That's awesome. Stuart, what about you?
I will just say that my parents have always invested in my future. I don't know enough about my past, or I've heard conflicting stories about my past. So I won't get into whether I was told I couldn't do anything, or what what have you, because I really don't know. but there was definitely say in my future, an investment, and it was always known that I could make decisions for myself, and so I do every day.
Thank you, Stuart. Kim?
Well, with my parents, I had 3 other siblings, so they really never treated me any different than the other ones, and I was never baby, oh, she can't see to do this or that. It was none of that. I was able and encouraged to do what my other siblings were doing, and I think that helped with a lot of independence. And just like, for instance, with Carly, she's very independent, and that's because we let her do, and we don't baby her either.
You know, I am a firm believer that your daughter Carly will take over the world one day. I really do think that. And before we move forward, I do want to point out, Harlan, that someone in the YouTube chat loves your dad. So apparently everyone loves your dad.
Yeah.
Oh.
Isaac, I would love to hear your response on the question.
As far as like my mother and my father, they definitely laid down the foundation for me growing up, similar to how Mr. Wilbert was describing with his father, because they're the ones that provided the education and support growing up, in the foundation, and introduced to me the community, what the community mainly is consisted of, mainly. And so, you know how they say charity begins at home. They definitely put me to work at home first, in the community, and then going out into the community and just knowing that the real feel of community. Because at one point, I think your parents prepare you for, a legacy. They prepare you to maintain yourself. So because at one point, they weren't there for me, like throughout my diagnosis, they weren't there, and I had to be strong enough to educate them, so far as with my diagnosis of HIV and everything that entails, so at one point, it was used to educate them on how they can be more supportive to me, as a person living with HIV. So yeah, definitely, they laid out the foundation for it to work, because I don't think that if they had laid out the foundation, that I would know to go to them to be like, look, this is what I'm going through and I need support like this, because some individuals don't even have that. So just to acknowledge, it's not about me, because I have been through things as well without them. So I had to rely on community to get through and to get them back. So yeah, definitely they laid out a foundation. And thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, it's an incredibly powerful testimony. As a person with a disability, I think one of the most important tools that you can learn is knowing how to educate others on what it really is like to be a person with a disability or a health condition, and the reality of it, and that it's going to be okay. It may suck along the way, and it may be harder than other people's journeys, but at the end of the day, it will be all right, most likely. There's a comment in the question in the chat that says, as a child, did you participate in youth activities? How were you treated, and what did you learn from your peers?
Again, that goes back to what I did at summer camp. Of course, I participated in youth activities, and they were very respecting of me. And it's where I came up from behind in my Judaism. So there's that.
Does anyone else have any input?
It doesn't really pertain to me exactly as youth because I wasn't diagnosed until I was 18 years old. So as a youth, saying camp and summer camps, I was a normal, healthy kid, but I can kind of relate to the beginning of college as a freshman in college. At the time, I had two dialysis ports, one in my neck and one in my shoulder. And I live at the very top of Texas, so it gets over 100 degrees. And so it would be very hot, and I would be outside in a tank top or something. And I never really saw it as something to be ashamed of until kids would point it out, or other college students be like, "What's on your neck? Like, what's there? What is that? What's wrong with you?" And kids can be hateful at times, and that made me really self-conscious. But I've learned like that was what was keeping me alive. That's what let me see the next day. It let me continue my journey. It let me all of these things. So once I would explain it to people, telling them that I was in stage renal disease, that my kidneys weren't functioning correctly, they kind of were more accepting because they kind of realized like, wow, she is strong. She's going through this. She has no shame. She's not embarrassed to be out in public or anything like that. And so as a youth, I wasn't diagnosed, but it's accepting. I have to explain it to people because many don't know what end-stage renal disease or what dialysis was, because as a kid, that's not a term we hear every day. And so whenever I would explain it to them, they weren't so afraid of me, I would say. They were more accepting, like, wow, and then they wanted to learn more. And I would tell them more about the disease and what you can do and all these other things. And because of that, I joined many kidney foundations here throughout Texas and Louisiana. So I love to get back and explain to people exactly how it works and how it functions, because you never really understand what your kidneys do until you lose one. And you're like, oh, well, this is interesting. But they were very accepting. It just takes some explanation because it's new to people who wouldn't be afraid. Or be a little shocked to see that. But yes, that's mine.
I wonder if you know my father, Dr. Eric Simon.
I'm trying to think. I meet so many people that I'm more of a face person. Once I see them, I'm like, oh yes, I know them. But by names, I forget my name half the time. I won't respond.
Or like chances are you've seen him maybe once or twice and you don't remember.
Most likely.
But he is a nephrologist.
Oh, wow. Yes,
so,
most likely I've met him then.
What?
I said most likely I've met them. So.
Yeah, it's a small world when it comes to what you know about kidney disease, and I know a small bit thanks to him, because even though it doesn't affect me personally, but anyway, you said the thing in your neck was what was keeping you alive. Don't you mean it was what would have killed you if you hadn't taken the initiative to go check it out?
Yes, Stuart, if I'm understanding, you're meaning it was a dialysis port, so I had a heart catheter. I refused I can't think of the exact name. It goes in your arm. If anybody remembers it, please tell me. I had a heart catheter, but yes, I had to take the initiative to go to dialysis. And that was one of the hardest things for me, because I dreaded sitting down in the pain of 5 hours. Like, no 18-year-old wanted to do that. We wanted to be out. We wanted to go hang with friends or play video games. But I was sitting there, one of the youngest people in the dialysis center, and would have to make the initiative to bring myself to dialysis. And so, yes, it's what kept me alive as long as I made the initiative to go to dialysis. Otherwise, it was just a port. It served no purpose unless I used the machine to be able to access it.
Well, the very first thought I had about the dialysis was my father's. The very first experience I had with what my father was actually doing was him taking the Schadenfreude of having these young people sit up at the machine, and it was something that I didn't see, but it was talked about, you know.
Yes, I understand. It's definitely different. If you ever see someone who is a dialysis patient or even a kidney transplant, um, they have scars on my neck and shoulders because you do have cords. You get shots every day. You need your kidneys to live. And so when you lose your kidneys, you have to think of an alternative, which comes to dialysis, which I was very lucky enough to have a kidney transplant, which takes me off dialysis. And so I just take the pills every day. There's no more need for a machine. I get to live a normal life. I get to go out and have fun and go to class. I don't have to, I don't have to think of what time I need to get to dialysis. I don't have to take 5 hours out of my day to be able to go accomplish that goal of going to dialysis. But I understand what you're saying, Stuart, but thanks for asking the question about it. I really appreciate it. Sorry, Lillian, we just kind of took over.
No, that's exactly the purpose of the panel. I'm glad that you guys were able to connect on that point. We also have a comment on our YouTube chat. It says, when I had my son educate his classmates on his disability, they became more understanding and inclusive. They at some point began to advocate for him without asking, LOL.
That also happened to me in ninth grade. It happened only in ninth grade because otherwise there was no well, it was advocating against, of all things, racism and anti-Semitism. But I was also ridiculed for having a disability. They called me an Asperger because that's what it would have been diagnosed as. With the emphasis on Asperger, you know. But anyway, and they said, and when I said he was a German doctor, and they said he probably was a Nazi, I didn't think at the time that it was actually potentially true. And he was collaborating with the Nazis. And so I'm glad that we took him off the DSM-5. The DSM-5 is what we use to diagnose learning disabilities and social disabilities. So if I were diagnosed today, I'd be diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. As it happens, I was diagnosed under the DSM, I think under the DSM-3 maybe, as pervasive developmental disorder, and then again under the DSM-4 as Asperger's. But today I'd be diagnosed as ASD.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Stuart. I wanted to ask if anyone else had any experiences with peers starting to advocate for you before you even had to advocate for yourself, or friends.
I've had my peers advocate for me, especially when it first happened, because it happened out of nowhere. I just graduated high school. I was on my second week of college, and my life completely turned upside down. But my peers actually started making t-shirts. They were trying to raise money for me to be on dialysis because at 18 years old, I did not have the insurance to cover anything that I needed kidney-wise. Never thought I would need it until I was older, but just shows you how fast life can change. But besides just helping me raise awareness and things like that, I noticed little small things here in college and my friends do today is that they always try to accommodate me. For example, whether it be eating out with food or, you know, just the times I have to take my medication, they plan around things. They kind of take me into considerations, like Allie's, you know, Allie can't have sugar or something like that. And so they'll make me a sugar-free birthday cake. It's just little small things that mean the world to me. And so, yes, I've had a great support system who's always advocated for me or is always there. They still think about me. They make sure to include me, whether it's, you know, going somewhere to eat or just going out to the park. But yes, I've had my peers advocate, and I think that's amazing that they were doing that for her son. That's awesome.
It's so important to have that community and that support system around you. I remember one of the most hurtful things I had ever experienced is, I had gotten established with a friend group, they had known me, and then later on they had revealed to me that whenever they first met me, they didn't want to become friends with me or get too attached to me because they were scared that I was going to die because I had an oxygen cannula, and all they had seen was the faults in our stars. And they thought I had lung cancer. Like, in their head, they had diagnosed me with lung cancer, which is not my issue. But through gradual, getting to know me and education, they actually became one of the strongest support systems and the coolest group to be around. They were the ones who were so excited to push my wheelchair that one day. And so through that conversation, it was gradually normalized. I know we're running short on time. We have about 20 minutes left. Once again, I want to encourage our audience members to send in any questions that you may want to ask our panelists, whether this be through YouTube or Zoom chat. Another question that we have is, what's the 3 most valuable community resources or supports for you guys?
I'll take a shot at it because I kind of wanted to answer the other question, just to share experiences about people living with HIV. Because particularly when I was diagnosed with HIV, I was at Southern University, and again, so that was my health. A challenge when I was in school. And then I had a friend that was diagnosed with HIV as well. So we kind of helped support each other. And that's another aspect of community, of people supporting each other from the same community and developing a type of community with each other. But also just to bring another issue so far as mental health to the light, because I can remember when I was in school and then I had decided to go to graduate school, mainly. And there were some days that my mental health wasn't up to par where I couldn't go on campus. I would just have to communicate to my supervisors or my graduate mentor. And I can remember a few instances where that same friend that was diagnosed with HIV, that was like me, that was pursuing a degree as well, would drop off my assignments for me. And that really meant a lot to me then, because I couldn't believe that I couldn't actually, I didn't have enough guts to leave my apartment. My mental health was not right. And of course, I got that straight with, the use of medications again. But even now, to where I can talk about my experiences. The peer support was definitely someone that was just like me, experiencing something like me. Who understood what I was going through when I said, I can't go to campus today. Can you please turn this in? My anxiety is just up the roof already. And then it's a major assignment. Please take it for me, and that was meaningful for me because, I was able to eventually graduate. So I think that the support from each other is where a lot of the source comes from. So people from similar to you or with this, some similar similarities. And then there's also resources available in the community. There's strong organizations and foundations historically that can provide resources and support. People with similar abilities or similarities, the peer support, and then resources, and then a lot of us said family. So I think those 3 are very important to me.
Thank you, Isaac. And I think you bring up a really great point about mental health, because it's such a crucial part of taking care of your overall health. And I know that I haven't heard a lot of conversations in the disability community about how disability or health conditions can really impact your mental health. Does anyone else want to take a shot at the question as Isaac phrased it?
I'm going to take a shot at the not at the, I'm going to take a shot at the question which somebody posted in chat, actually, because I want us to get through this. It says, how is the culture of persons with invisible disabilities different than those with visible disabilities? And I'm going to say that my disability is invisible. And so, and it was hard at first. I think it's a lot easier now, but when I was born in 1986 and throughout the 80s, 90s, and even the early aughts, it was very difficult to find a system that would work for me, acknowledging that I had a disability, because for normal schools, it was like, oh, sure, but we can't handle him here. But for the disabled schools, I was too advanced for them. I was actually expelled from my first daycare center, and it was because I had I reacted to something in a very negative way, which was stereotypically autistic. However, it was a constant struggle to find a place for me to fit in, both in St. Louis, where I lived, and in New Orleans, where I moved in 1994. And that meant that I was constantly being a square peg fit in a round hole, until I switched schools on my own and I'll just leave it there. It's not, it wasn't but I will say that during my employment, it was very difficult to get employment because I was seen as not typical of the disabled employees that LRS and others tailored to.
Thank you, Stuart. Mr. Harlan, I would like to get your opinion on how the culture of persons with invisible disabilities differ than those with visible disabilities.
Well, it's interesting because when it comes to invisible disabilities, I think the biggest challenge is society's need for proof, I guess you would say. With invisible disabilities, lots of times people can say, oh, well, I can't do this because I have this, or I have difficulty with this because of this. And without that visual evidence, a lot of people in our society are doubtful that there actually is an invisible disability there to speak of. And I would say probably that would be one of the biggest challenges. But also just in terms of resources and things like that, a lot of times invisible disabilities don't have as many resources that they can depend on for assistance with those disabilities as physical disabilities.
Thank you.
Sure.
And our last question that I would like to ask of everyone is in our last 10 minutes is what does your best life look like? And Wilbert, I'll let you go first.
My best life?
Yes, anything you can dream of.
Graduated. My best life is graduating from college. Graduating from college and also just living the life that I always pray for. So that I'm working hard for, that is my life. That's my I just want to live the best.
I love that. Thank you, Wilbert. And please know that I'm rooting for you and I think you'll get there.
Thank you.
For me, it's an integrated community where I can live independently, commute to work, and do a lot of things. Once I can move out of my parents' house. Not that I don't like my parents, but it's not. But I think that it should be at least somebody's goal to move out of their parents' house.
That makes sense. Thank you, Stuart. Allie, would you like to go?
Sure. Wilbert kind of stole my thunder, but mine would be graduating. I've worked so hard after everything I've been through, and I still go through today. I get tears in my eyes when I think of walking that stage with my cap and gown and just waving to my family to see where I was in the beginning, weighing only 90 pounds in a hospital bed, relying on oxygen and wheelchairs, to walking the stage proud and holding up that degree I'm going to get in law. Might take me a little bit, but I'm going to get there. And my dream job is for the FBI. I've always wanted to work for an FBI since I can remember as a kid. I've never changed it. And that's my goal. I want to be a detective. I want to be a forensic scientist. And that is my goal in life. And no matter what I go through or the troubles and challenges that I face every day, I will get that. I will get the degree. I will walk the stage. I will shake the president's hand. I will do it.
Like, call President Biden, Allie's graduating.
I'm at the president of the university, but
oh, well,
the United States president, I'll shake either hand. I'm okay with
there
both.
you go. Bambi puts in the chat that she expects invites to everyone's graduation.
I got you covered.
We will.
Kim, would you like to go?
Sure. Well, I don't know about dream, but I find I am living the dream. And I guess another thing is seeing Carly actually take over the world one day. Maybe she will become president.
That's right.
Well, I mean, I don't have to like hope for that. Like that's set in stone already. We know she's going to take over the world. Mr. Harlon, would you like to go?
Yeah. Well, I always said, we need to be more worried about the life we have than the life we want. But I've been very fortunate and very blessed to have mentors and opportunities and things that helped me to get the skills and the training and things that I need to be independent and self-sufficient. And I think in my perfect life, I would really like to just keep helping others to be able to find those same kind of resources and opportunities and to be able to reach those same kind of goals. because there's a lot of work ahead of us, but we're all in a much better place than we've ever been in before. And I feel really positive about the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And last but not least, Isaac.
So living my best life, I mean, I guess I could say, graduating, that was definitely a turning point in my life. And then I wanted to achieve more. So I'll be glad to hear you achieve all those things, Ali and Wilbert, because that's something that I wanted to achieve more once I achieved, one thing. But now I think that it'd be appropriate for me to want to end the HIV epidemic. I mean, that's the only way I could say I'm living my best life is because I want to impact communities to let them know about prevention, and even provide support and hope for those who are living with HIV. That's living my best life. And I think since being diagnosed with HIV, I've been able to recognize living my best life because there was really nothing that I was pretty much good at until I started doing this. So so my best life would be ending the HIV epidemic.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Isaac. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for participating in this panel today. I think we had some really great discussion, and I look forward to seeing everyone graduate. So thank y'all again. And that is it for our self-determination, empowerment, and independence panel.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Great job. We appreciate it. We will be back on at 2 o'clock for our next session. So thank you.